Every day, scientists are learning more and more about how human brains work and how many of us don't fit into the old-fashioned understanding of how brains should work. But a lot of ideas about parenting and familial relationships still need to catch up to the reality of human variation. Neurological differences are natural, profoundly valuable parts of being in a community together and in being part of a family. Whoever you are, wherever you are in your journey, I am here to explore with you. We are all in this together. Welcome to Neurodiverging. And welcome back to Neurodiverging. I'm Danielle and I'm your host. My guest today is someone a little different. I'm talking to Anaïs Lucia, who is an ADHD-er who also works as an actor, a director, a filmmaker, a stand-up comedian, a YouTube content creator, and a host. And she is a host and producer of 3 podcasts. She is a busy person. We are discussing how she got her start in the entertainment industry and how her ADHD traits affect her work and approach to what she does. And she has some really unique tips for actually finishing some of the 10,000 different projects that you fellow ADHDers have going on right now. So we had a really good conversation, and she has some really interesting things to say. So I hope you will enjoy this episode of Neurodiverging. Hi, Anaïs. Welcome to the Neurodiverging Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good, Danielle. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad to have you here. Thanks for being here. Would you be willing to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Anaïs. I'm originally from a really small border town. I am an actress, host, stand-up comedian, YouTube content creator, and I do a bunch of other things too. I have many hobbies, and I have ADHD. I've been diagnosed with ADHD, anxiety, depression, so lots of things. I'm looking forward to talking about ADHD with you. So
thanks so much. Yeah, I was noticing when I was looking you up, you have done so many things. Like you said, you're an actress and a comedian and a host, and you have 3 podcasts. Is that right? I know you have a wide variety of things you're doing.
yep.
So how did you get into the entertainment industry originally and start doing all this cool stuff?
Well, originally started, just when I was really little, like 4. I knew I wanted to be in movies. That's what I thought. I would, watch movies and I'm like, I want to do that. That looks fun. I want to be in movies. That's how I thought of it when I was a kid. And I felt kind of weird because, I grew up in a small town where there's no entertainment industry. It's a border town. And I remember in preschool when we would play that game where you would just kind of pretend you were, adults, and one kid would be like, I'm a police officer, and the other one's like, I'm a doctor, and I'm like, I'm an actor, and the kids were like, what? That's not really useful for society. We're doing useful things, and you're like, I'll be an actor. So I was like, oh, this is weird. This is not no one else wants to do this. But yeah, I knew I wanted to do it. And then in first grade, they asked us what do you want to be when you grow up? And I wrote, I want to be a movie star and a TV star, and I want to make people laugh. That's the exact thing I wrote, and I kept it, I have it framed because I just thought I found it later when I was in college, that assignment, and I thought it was really interesting because I was like, that's still kind of what I want to do, and I still I like to make people laugh. So I thought it was really cool that at 6 or 7 I wrote that. So yeah, I always wanted to do it, but because I was in, like I said, in a small town, my parents weren't, they didn't have any connections or anything. And I thought, oh, well, how am I going to get into this industry if I'm in this small town? I don't have connections. So I just, around middle school, I started just making my own. I was like, I'm going to give myself work because there's no work here. So I'm going to give myself work. So I just started making my own movies. With my first camera was this really cheap black and white camera. It was called Tyco Video Cam. You had to have it hooked up to your VCR because it would record directly onto the VHS tape. And so yeah, I started making my own movies. I had my siblings, my neighbors in it, and then I started getting into directing because I would direct them and everything. And I was like, oh, I like directing too. So yeah, I direct as well. I forgot that, but yeah. So I just kept doing a lot of video projects in middle school. Then in high school, I would kind of find any opportunity I could to just make video projects and act and everything. So yeah, in elementary school, like we did school plays and I always enjoyed them. And then in high school, I would ask the teacher when they would give us assignments, I'd be like, can I, instead of writing it, I'd be like, can I do it in video form? And they're like, sure.
That's so cool.
Yeah, most of the time they told me yeah, because I think it's like it's something different. I was the only one doing it that way, and it was cool because I enjoyed it, and I would always get an A because I would do a good job, and they're like, wow, you should do this for a living. I'm like, thank you, I do want to do it for a living. And yeah, I did my senior project. I did like a 10-minute long video, and I made it funny because that's just my natural inclination. I like making things funny. And then I went to film school. I went to a university, but then I didn't really like their film program, so I took a break, moved to San Diego, because I'm originally from Arizona, so I moved to San Diego for a bit. Then I was like, okay, I'm gonna finish film school, and then I went back and I got my associate's degree in film. And after that, I was like, well, I want to go to LA because that's where you go for work. And I got an internship. I got a paid internship for like this company I really wanted to work for, and it was great. And then I started getting into like background acting and taking classes over there, just hosting acting classes. And just started kind of like filming short films. And just because I like directing and acting, but sometimes like I'm in the mood to direct, sometimes I'm in the mood to just act, sometimes I'll do both. But lately it's more, I'm leaning towards the acting. Like I want to act, I love acting, I want to just keep doing it more. And I did my first feature film. It came out last year. It's been in a few film festivals. Well, not a few, like quite a lot, actually. It's called The Family Tree. I actually won an award for it for Best Supporting Actors in a Feature. So that was cool.
Congratulations. That's
Culver City Film
awesome.
Festival in 2020. Thank you. I felt vindicated. I was like, oh, because my small town, for someone who has like Hollywood dreams, it's like people tell you it's impossible. They're like, you're never gonna make it. Like, you don't know anyone. You're from a small town. People are not supportive. Like my family wasn't supportive. My town wasn't supportive. Like I just had to. I was all alone pretty much in this dream. So I kind of felt like, oh, vindication. I won an award. So I mean, if you want to check it out, you can, but it's just a warning, it's not for kids. So I don't really go around advertising it because it's an adult film, not adult as in like that kind of adult film, but it's
adult themes.
Kids, so.
Yeah.
Yes, adult themes. There we go. Yes. So so now I have never done a commercial, so that's something new I'm trying to book, is a commercial, because I've done short films and things like, and well, my first feature. But I'm setting my sights. I have a new goal this year. Is I want to try to book my first commercial, so hopefully that happens. Yeah.
That's so cool. I love that you had this idea when you were so young and you just carried it through, because I feel like that's not a story that you hear a lot, like that.
Yeah.
I think when I was 6, I wanted to be like a baker or something, which is great. I like cake, but like to carry such a like huge dream all the way through and work so hard towards it. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's why, like, I know people are different. Like, I would meet people in college and they're like, I still don't know what I want to do. I'm like, I knew since I was like 4. Like, how do you not know? But people just have different paths. Like my younger sister, she was like that too. She would like switch, like, oh, now I want to do this, now I want to do that. But now she got her degree, she's more focused. But growing up, she would like switch a lot. So it just it just depends.
It's so great. Yeah, I mean, we need all those kinds, but it's I think most of my family are kind of and me too. I like paddle around. I try different things before I commit. So it takes a long time for me to do that. So it's always so exciting to hear about people who've just known from the beginning and have just gone straight for it. Like It's so inspiring and
But
cool.
because
So.
of the ADHD, there are other things, a lot of other things I did,
Oh,
like
yes.
branches on the side
Hmm.
that I did. So I didn't mention those because the story would be too long. But that was my main goal, is like acting. But
Yeah.
I feel like I've I kind of feel like I've lived many lives just because I've had
Hmm.
many different jobs. Pretty much any job you can think of, I've had. I've had over 30 jobs. And then, I also, like I said, I like hosting. I
Hmm.
like, I do stand-up comedy as well, creating content for YouTube. So just always creating, I guess.
Yeah, I really, and I think the arts is so important, and getting diverse voices in the arts is so important. And I just, I also think that ADHD, this is my opinion. You should tell me as a person with ADHD if this is correct or not. But I think that ADHD and that willingness to try new things and try new experiences and get that kind of like endorphin rush of trying new things could bring so much into any kind of creative project, just because having those experiences must help you to build characters, build experience, and bring that to your, when you're writing a skit for YouTube or when you're doing any kind of creative
Mm-hmm.
endeavor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that it does help. And especially like as an actor, with all the different jobs I've had, it's like, oh, have you ever worked at a retail store? I'm like, yes. Have you ever worked as a waitress? Yes. Like, so it kind of helps me with acting too, because you have to kind of have all these skills. So in
Yeah.
a way, it's like acting is it's kind of good for someone with ADHD. Like we kind of have a reason to have all these different hobbies because it'll help
Yeah.
us with acting. So, well,
That's so cool. Do you think that overall ADHD helps you out with all of your jobs more than hurts you? Or do you, like, I know that's kind of a weird question because it's kind of part of you, but do you find that your ADHD traits tend to kind of support you in what you're trying to do, or do they get in the way more, or both?
okay. So I think in the creativity aspect, I think it helps. But when it comes to actually completing things and getting things done, it gets in the way. So that's kind of for me one of the hardest things. Just kind of come to terms with, because that's one of the reasons like I have gotten depressed, is because in case for those listening, I'm 35. So ideally I would have wanted to be further along in my career. And I know a lot of people, like, once they get up there, they kind of have that regret of like, oh, I wish I would have been some, but it's like we can't really, that's reality. But it is hard for me to deal with sometimes. But and I know it's because the ADHD didn't help. Just because I'm very good at starting things, but completing them has been very hard. So I feel if I would have been more educated about ADHD, if I would have gotten diagnosed younger, if I would have just been more knowledgeable and I just developed strategies, like I probably would have been further along. But I've learned a lot of these things just only recently in my 30s.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's better to learn them than like now than never. But I do think like, oh, if only I would have known this like 10 years ago, it would have helped me so much, to just manage things better and just kind of be able to just complete things. So that's kind of been the hardest thing for me. So yeah, with creativity, I think it's awesome. Like I think
Yeah.
it's I that's why I'm happy. Like I'm happy when it comes to being creative. I have no problem being creative. I'm like, ADHD is awesome. I love it. But then when it comes to getting things done, I'm like, oh, I hate it. I hate this. So
Yeah. I'm autistic, and I was also diagnosed as an adult, and I have some of the same feelings. Like, I got where I am and I'm really proud of that. But gosh, if I had understood, the
mm-hmm.
autistic traits and what they were and what they meant a little earlier in my life, that would have been I'm also 35. It would have been really helpful, like just
Yeah.
to get through 30 years or so without having any idea of why things didn't work the way I wanted them to go sometimes. And yeah, it could be really hard. So, and you said you self-diagnosed as ADHD before you got an official diagnosis. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I didn't feel right just telling people I have ADHD without like being diagnosed officially.
Hmm.
So I just had that suspicion. Like I would read about it and I was like, I think I like, and then I just kind of read more about it, and especially symptoms in like in girls, women. And then I was like, wow, I can relate a lot to this. It's like describing me as a kid, describing me now, describing my whole life basically.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I do have it. So then I got diagnosed as part of a study.
Oh, cool.
They actually gave me, they did tests on me with like the brain thing, and they gave me like an actual thing saying, you know, my diagnosis. But of course, not surprising, I lost it, just like I lose a lot of things. So I don't know. Maybe I have it somewhere. I just don't know where. But I remember when I found out, I cried. Like I
Oh,
didn't cry
yeah.
at that moment, but when I got home, I cried, and I was like, "Why am I crying?" I think just because I felt like, oh my gosh, like a lot of the things that I felt bad about that I was doing, like it just makes sense now why I did it. It doesn't mean I'm like lazy or just like not motivated enough or too, I don't know, because people would make me feel bad about things sometimes, like, oh, you can't stay at a job for so long,
Mhm.
or you're too scatterbrained, things like that.
Yeah.
And now I'm still like, I just felt like, yeah, kind of like seen, like, oh, or, oh my god, someone
Yeah.
like, I have an explanation for why I
Mhm.
did these things. And I just wished, yeah, I would have known sooner. But I definitely, yeah, I cried. I had a little it's purging of emotions.
Yeah. The external validation can be so validating, just because I just said validation twice, but it is that feeling that you know, as a kind of adjacent experience of being autistic, is you feel judged all the time for stuff that you feel like you're trying really hard, and people just
Mm-hmm.
don't believe that you're trying. You just have to try harder.
Yeah.
And then when you get that kind of external, somebody else sees this, somebody else knows it, it can be, I can understand the
And they're like, oh, you just
catharsis.
need to
Yeah, just
focus and things like that. It's like, it's not easy. I'm not like you. So, yeah.
I was going to see if we could talk about how you sort of manage your ADHD traits, because, like we said before, you have so many things happening. You're doing so much. And I have enough trouble just managing this one podcast, and you have just so
Right.
many cool things going on. Do you have specific ways of keeping tabs on so many things, or tips for others who are organizing a lot or trying to keep up with a lot?
Yeah, I do these, you know, these are just things that work for me. So, people who are like really organized probably are gonna hate this.
Most of
Because
them are not listening to this
oh,
podcast, would
okay,
be
that's
my
true.
my suspicion.
So, first of all, I'm a visual person. I have to see things. Like if I have to do something, I have to like put up a visual, like sticky note or something, because I will forget. Like writing it down on the calendar on my phone does nothing for me. Like I have to see it. So I have a lot of things on my walls. It's just like covered with, you know, lists of things I need to do, my goals, and even on the bathroom mirror I have just, yeah, so everything I have to see in terms of like calendar, like planners. I don't have like a regular, I tried with like the regular planners. It just didn't work for me. I just didn't open it. I would write it and then, because I just put it away. Like I have to have it up. So I have I started just like drawing out my own calendars. It's kind of hard to do it on like to kind of talk about it or like on an audio podcast, but yeah, I would just draw it out and like have things really big and like blocks. And so that way I could just see it. And I would always have it out, like sprawled out on my desk. And I know like some people will be like, put it away, and I'm like, I'm gonna forget, it has to be out all the time. So I literally have my calendar open all the time, just there so I can look at it. So yeah, so I can't put a lot of things away, because when it comes to things I need to do, because I will forget. So that's one thing. And then in terms of my podcast, because yeah, I have you know, different podcasts, and then I have YouTube channels for like all of
Yes.
them too. So it's just a lot, like managing the episodes and the podcast the video, yeah, videos and audio. So I have a paper and I have columns. So one column for each podcast, and then I write down there with like a marker. I have colors too. I need colors. It has to be interesting, or else it's not gonna catch my attention. So I have colors on there, and then just like the order of what needs to go up there, you know, what videos and things like that, because I come up with a lot of ideas really fast and I have to write them down, or else I'm gonna forget. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I
Mhm.
need to write down so I can see it. So that's one thing I do. And then in terms of like this, I learned it just maybe a few months ago, and I wish I would have known this since childhood. It would have been super helpful. Well, I mean, I didn't know I had ADHD when I was a kid, but okay, so instead of, you know, because we procrastinate a lot, I tend to do things at the last minute. I still get them done, but it's always last minute. And I hated in, you know, growing up when they would give us a month for an assignment, because I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna do it
I was always
the
up till
night
3 a.m. the night
before.
before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
3 a.m. be all like sleep deprived, but turn it in and I get an A. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how I do it, but I just did. And so instead of like, because, you know, now, like, yeah, I do all these episodes and videos and things like that. So instead of like planning too far ahead, I try to kind of schedule it a little bit closer, because somebody was like, okay, they told me, like, if you know you procrastinate, just kind of plan your procrastination in a way, instead
Mm-hmm.
of like if you want a podcast out on Saturday, instead of trying to, you know, do it like a month before and then you're going to procrastinate anyway, just schedule it for the day or two before. And that way, instead of like stressing out about it like for a month or weeks or whatever, just you can do your other stuff there. So now I kind of do that. I do a lot of things like last minute, because like right now I'm barely kind of catching up on some old podcast episodes. I felt bad because I had interviewed these people for my podcast, and it like, they're like, so when's it gonna be up? And it's like 3 months later. I'm like, sorry, it's gonna be up soon. So I have one more podcast, like one more old interview. That's my last one, and I'm just gonna feel so proud of myself. Like, finally, all my old ones are gonna be up. But after that, now, like, I don't schedule anyone until I know, like, I'm caught up on my other
Mm-hmm.
ones. So that's the other thing too, because I come up with ideas really fast, and I like when I come up with something, I want to do it right away, but then
Yeah.
I'm like, no, calm down, like, because, and then that's why I get so bogged down with things, because I'll just do it, and then I'm like, oh shoot, I have to like edit, you know, a bunch of things and stuff like that. I have to complete them. So now I kind of see a new project as a reward. So I tell myself, like if I'm working on something and I'm like, oh, I want to do this thing now, this new idea, and I tell myself, okay, you can't do the new idea until you finish this one. So I kind of see the new one as my reward. So that has helped me.
That is such a
So
good idea. And I haven't
yeah,
heard anyone ever say it's like a unique idea, but I could see how it would work.
yeah.
It's really cool.
And but I always write it down, because I'm like, I'm gonna forget. So write it down and then finish what you're doing. And then you can see your new project as your new reward. And then I take a lot of breaks. Like, I think the max I can work straight is maybe 15-20 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
because then I'm like, okay, I'm getting bored. So I'll give myself breaks, but fun breaks. So I'll maybe dance. I love dancing, so I'll play a fun song on Spotify and have a little dance party. Or maybe I'll just walk my dog or sing. I like doing karaoke, so I might sing a few songs. Just because I need that break, and it kind of gets me a refresh to like go back
Yeah.
to work. Because if I just keep like forcing myself, you know, because that's what everyone else does, and that's like what makes a good worker or whatever, or a good person. That's kind of what most people think, like you have to
Mm.
just push through, and it's like, no, like my brain is fried, I'm sorry. Like, I need a little break, and then I'll feel refreshed to like come back. So I, you know, you just have to know how you work and what works for you, and do that, because some, you know, some other people might think that's crazy, and that's, they can focus for a longer time. But yeah, like I don't like that they make us kind of, especially with work and stuff, like I've done cubicle jobs and I couldn't do it. It's like I
Mm-hmm.
need to move around, I need to like get up and like just take breaks, and it makes me want to cry when they're like, just stay there and work like
Yeah.
for an hour straight. Like, I can't. So those are a couple tips. Hopefully those help.
I think those are really helpful. Like you said, everybody's different, and it's so hard to figure out what works for you if you don't even know what to try, because the traditional advice, like you said, just doesn't usually work for us. So having somebody who's, I know you haven't got it all together, but somebody who has systems that mostly work is just it. I
Mm-hmm.
think it really helps people to hear. So especially parents who are trying to figure out stuff for their kids, like if they're neurotypical and they just like the traditional advice works for them, then they might not know what to suggest. Yeah, anyway, it just really helps parents to hear from an adult ADHD or like
Mm.
what might work for their kids so that they know what to try. So it's really helpful.
Yeah, so encourage your, like, if your kid wants to take a break, please let them take a break. It's gonna help them. Don't force them. Like, for me, I wanted to cry, so like I didn't throw tantrums. My tantrum was just crying quietly, but I still cried. So, just don't feel bad if, your kid wants to take a break. It's maybe that's how they learn better.
Yeah, we're big break fans in my house for sure. And then to switch gears a little bit, I was listening to your YouTube channel, and I'm sorry, I can't remember which YouTube channel now, but you had several videos and a lot of content on how you identify as an introvert and how introverts are different than extroverts and how they need different things. And I thought that was really interesting because even though obviously ADHD people span all different types, I think there's a stereotype that if you're ADHD, you're loud and you're excited and you're like bouncing off the walls. And, you can be an introvert and do that too. But I think that people might come across that and feel like it's, they don't go together well like that, and oil and water, I guess, is what I'm going at. And so I just thought it was really cool how kind of outspoken you are about that. And I was wondering if you bump into people, like when you go to you're in the entertainment industry, you probably work with a lot of extroverts, would be my guess. I don't know if that's true. You should tell me. Are people surprised to hear, oh, here's an ADHDer who's also like pretty introverted and needs that downtime and that space? Like, what's the reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, the reaction is more from people who like aren't in the industry. They like, first of all, they think like if you're an introvert, you can't be on camera, and like introverts can be shy, but it's not the same thing. Like, there are introverts who aren't shy, like who've worked through their shyness. So it's not introvert does not equal shy. It's not also it's something you work on. Like before, I wanted to act, but I still was very nervous on camera my first times. Like I would get so red, and
Oh.
I had to work through it. So I tell people, like, I have a whole video on my channel talking about just my whole journey on shyness and things like that. I'm still a shy person. I still consider myself shy, but I'm definitely improved, because when I was younger, I was pretty much a mute. Like I rarely talked. I just would only speak. I would speak only when spoken to, really, and only to like my close friends that I was comfortable with. And when I spoke really like low. I'd be like almost whispering. Like I was just really just quiet. And my report cards when in elementary school, they all said the same thing, like really smart but quiet, really smart but quiet. So I'm like, well, at least I'm smart, so that's good. Yeah. And then, okay, so I just want to share this quote from this article, just for those who don't know that much about like women and ADHD. But Sari Solden, she's a therapist and author of Women and Attention Deficit Disorder. She said women with the disorder tend to be less hyperactive and impulsive, more disorganized, yes, that's me, scattered, yes, forgetful, and introverted.
Yeah.
They've alternately been anxious or depressed for years. That's true for me as well. So there you go. There you go. Oh, it's actually from Dr. Ellen Littman. Sorry, I quoted the wrong person, but she's the author of Understanding Girls with ADHD. So that's one difference. And she also talked about this example, which I thought was really interesting, about like, so let's say a boy and a girl, and they get an assignment, and they have to turn it in. They procrastinate, but the boys will usually, they might just like, yeah, watch SpongeBob, play video games or something. But the girl instead, and I did this all the time, she freaks out and tries to make the perfect project overnight. And then she also said that perfectionism is another common behavior in ADHD girls, and that's something I've definitely struggled with too.
Yeah.
And then the girl will stay up till 1 a.m. to finish the homework, and she hands in the assignment the next day, but the teacher has no clue that it was done at the last minute.
Yeah.
So people are surprised too, because they're like, oh, but you always turned in things on time, because and you got good grades, and because I guess they think like if you have ADHD you don't do them, because okay, my brother, he was diagnosed with ADHD, but he was diagnosed younger, because he was a more typical loud, like running around and things like that. So he was diagnosed when he was younger, but he was like not good at school. He was smart, but he wouldn't do the homework. So that was the difference. And he's definitely more extroverted than me. But yeah, like it's more just, I don't know, people who aren't in the entertainment industry who are like, oh, you can't be you can't be introverted. Like, how can you be on camera? And I'm just like, you know how many introverts are in the entertainment industry? Johnny Depp is an introvert. Heath Ledger was an introvert. Michael Jackson was an introvert. Like, you know, we just turn it on. Like, we're performers. But the difference, I kind of talked about this in one of my stand-up jokes, is like, the difference is like after, you know, let's say we're doing stand-up comedy, the extroverted comedians after the show, they're gonna be like talking to everyone, like, yeah, what's up, give me compliments, blah blah. But the introverted comedians after the show, we're probably just gonna leave. Like, we're done, we used up all our energy. We don't really want to stick around and talk to everyone. So that's a difference. And I'm actually you know, I have some introvert comedian friends, so I have I'm planning an introvert comedy show on Zoom that I'm gonna post on my YouTube channel. But that's like, once I reach a certain milestone, I'm gonna do a introvert comedy show. So all the comedians on the lineup are gonna be introverts. So keep a lookout for that. Subscribe.
Awesome. I'll make sure there's a link in the underneath in the show notes. I couldn't remember the word. So check out that link if you're interested.
So
and
introverts can be performers, and they can be funny. That's because people sometimes think that you have to be an extrovert to be funny. Sometimes introverts can be funnier. So. Okay. Because sometimes we'll just come out of nowhere. Like, we'll be quiet and all of a sudden we'll say one thing and people laugh. They're like, what? Because it'll be kind of random. Because they're like, you were so quiet and all of a sudden you said one thing. So I kind of like that. It's kind of unexpected.
Because introverts can pay attention, so we notice things. So yeah. Awesome. Thank you. So where can listeners find you if they want to learn more? Because you have so many things. What are your primary places to be found?
Yes. So social media, Instagram. My main one is Girl and Her Shiba Dog. So that's my main one with my doggy. If you want to see my son, he's so cute.
Super cute.
And then if you want to kind of check out my funny, you know, comedy introvert content, that's Anaïs Lucia comedy. So those are kind of my two main Instagrams. And then the podcasts, we have Musecast. That's about my favorite band, Muse. So if you love Muse from the UK, check out Musecast on YouTube and podcast and Spotify. Anywhere you can find the podcast. And then if you're into relationships, if you want to learn like how to be in a relationship, how do you know, stay in a relationship for a long time? Because that's something I've struggled with. It's like, how do you not get bored with someone? Like, I hate boredom. So that was one of my questions. Like, how do you not get bored with someone and want to be with them forever? So I interview couples who have been together for quite a bit, and it's so inspiring, and I love talking to them. I learn from each couple. So if you want to be inspired and see beautiful couples who are in love, check out the How to Relationship podcast. You can search for it on YouTube, Spotify, and other ones, Google Podcasts. So How to Relationship Podcast. I think if you just search my name, because my name's in all of them. So if you search Anaïs Lucia, my podcast will come up. And then my other podcast is called Quarantine Happy Hour, and that's a more random podcast. I need one that's not all structured and, you know. So this one is more just like, I just have different guests on and we just talk about different topics, you know. So yeah, you'll never know when we're going to talk about. And I usually have a drink. It's called, you know, Quarantine Happy Hour. That's kind of where I kind of let things go a little bit. Like, I'm stressed, I need a drink. So there you go.
That's the one I've listened the most to, and it was really fun. And then your comedy YouTube channel. That's where I spent most of my time when I was preparing. And I watched your YouTube with you got all the sketches of your soulmate and you were comparing them. I think that might be one of your most popular videos, but it like had me cracking up. So you guys should check it out. It's really good.
Bachelorette.
Yes, that was, yeah. That's I think I watched like 3 or 4, and I watched the Master Wu one, and then I watched the follow-up that was like 4 more soulmate sketches, and she critiques them, and she did a little Bachelorette like which one would win. And it was so funny.
Thank you.
Go check that out. Oh yeah, no, thank you for putting it up. I don't know. I think we all need comedy now. We all the arts is what we need as a society in so many ways.
It's such a compliment when people say that I'm funny, because like, not only do I want to be funny, but also because like I'm a woman, and you know, a lot of, you know how they say women can't be funny.
It's a lie. straight lie.
Like it's one of the best compliments for me when people are like, "Oh, this made me laugh. This is so funny." I'm like, "Oh, thank you, thank you." So
You're welcome. It's
thank you.
true. I really enjoyed it. So I subscribed. You guys should too.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate your time. I think people will find this really valuable. So
Thank you so much for having me. It was great talking about ADHD. We need to kind of educate people a little bit more, and hopefully,
absolutely.
Any woman or just, anyone in general who thinks they have it, hopefully can go get diagnosed with whatever you think you might have. I feel like, we deserve that validation. So yeah, thank you so much.
I had such a good time talking to Anaïs, and I'm so glad she agreed to be on the podcast. I think she had some really insightful things to say. I hope you all enjoyed it too. If you are interested, please hit the subscribe button and email me with what you think at neurodiverging.podcast@gmail.com. Also, please go check out Anaïs's social media sites. Her stuff is great. She is on YouTube. She has 2 Instagram accounts, a comedy one and a main Instagram, a TikTok, and 3 different podcasts. All of her links are in the show notes right below, so please go check her out right now. And I also just want to give a very big thank you to my patrons, Zach, David, Teresa, Sarah, Anan, and Outstronaut. Thank you so much for supporting this episode of Neurodiverging. If you are not a patron yet, you still have time. Check out the perks and the options available to you at patreon.com/neurodiverging. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you to Anaïs for her time. And please remember, we are all in this together.